Welcome to the Significance of Wealth podcast, where we explore the evolving landscape of wealth management, private investments, and collecting as both a passion and potential investment strategy. In each episode, host Tom Ruggie, founder and CEO of Destiny Family Office, discusses these topics with industry experts, providing insights into the unique challenges and opportunities associated with managing significant assets. I'm Martie Salt. In today's episode, Tom Ruggie talks with Brian Dwyer, president of Robert Edward Auctions, whose lifelong dedication to sports memorabilia has propelled him to the forefront of the industry. Brian's journey began like many collectors with a love for Topps baseball cards and the joy of building complete sets. This early enthusiasm sparked a career that would eventually influence the collectibles world. Starting with a small consignment business on eBay, Brian gradually moved into prominent roles, including a pivotal position in business development at SGC, a leader in card grading. In this episode, Tom and Brian explore Brian's journey with REA, including the challenges of leading a top auction house and the recent acquisition of Huggins Scott. They discuss the future of the collectibles hobby, share insights on managing personal collections, and look ahead to REA's upcoming auction on November 22nd, revealing what listeners can expect from this premier event. Get ready to bid a warm welcome to Brian Dwyer and to learn more about the significant impact he's making in the collectibles industry. Here's Tom.
Thank you, Martie, and thank you, Brian, for being here with us. It is a pleasure to have you here. You've been a great friend and a great resource in the business, and I love your auction house. Do a lot of business together, so pleasure to have you.
Yeah, no, thanks for the opportunity. I like what you've created here.
Oh, thank you. So I guess I've got a couple different segments I want to jump into. I want to talk a little bit about the business side because obviously, you know, I run a family office business, a wealth advisory business, and a lot of my clients are entrepreneurs. And you know, the second part of my business, we focus a lot on the collectibles, but you are not only very focused on the collectibles, but you're also an entrepreneur. And you know, a lot of people that I think will listen to this podcast probably know a little bit about your background and how you started with REA and you ultimately purchased REA. And I know from reading some information that, you know, prior to that, you had a couple of small businesses. I think you were doing some stuff on eBay at one point. I think you had a couple other things you were doing, but I'd love to hear from you a little bit about the transition into owning, you know, and it may not have been at the time. I don't really know the size, but transitioning from a small business and really taking that leap of faith into a much larger business that, at least since I've known you, has done extraordinarily well. You've done a fantastic job with it. But I'd love to hear a little bit about that process. Love to hear a little bit about, you know, to some extent, the trials and tribulations. You know, what went well, what were the tough learning curve items?
Yeah, look, I mean, I had the benefit of being an employee of REA before I was the owner of REA. And I think that if I look back on I'm going on my 13th year with REA now, that was hugely important. That was hugely integral to me being able to run it successfully. You know, I knew how the business ran. I knew what was expected of the business. I had great relationships with the clients of the business, and that made it easier. I didn't say it made it easy though, because it's the hardest thing I've ever done aside from maybe.
It's never easy.
No, it's never easy. But, you know, parenting and running a business are two very, very tough things that I've done in my life. And I've always been an entrepreneur. You know, I mean, I was the kid that was shoveling snow when he was 8, 9, 10 years old. I was the kid that was blowing leaves. I was the kid that was setting up lemonade stands. I've always just had a knack for trying to provide something that people are looking for. And I've never been afraid to work hard. And when I graduated college, I thought I was going to be a banker. I went and I got a degree in finance. I took accounting classes, and I graduated at a time that the economy was not so hot. And so I said, well, what do I really love? And what could I maybe do temporarily to ride things out? And that was when I went to work for SGC. And it was the couple of years that I was at SGC that I really just realized how much I loved the cards and the hobby. I left SGC. I started my own auction house. I was selling on eBay, as you alluded to. And, you know, running your own business where there's one person is totally different than running a business with employees. And that's what REA was. It was smaller, much smaller than it is now. We had 2 employees when I took over. We had 2 auctions when I took over. We were one of the largest, the landscape was totally different back then than it is now, but we were one of the largest, we still are one of the largest auction companies in the industry. Um, but as far as trials and tribulations, I think just figuring out how to keep things the same was something that was important to me. Like how do you keep the tone and the voice and the quality the same that people have come to expect, but also grow and also innovate. And we've done that. We've grown now. This year we'll have 11 auctions. And we've innovated dramatically compared to the first day I stepped into REA. But I think just trying to keep things the same to honor your legacy clients who love the brand, but also change it enough that you're keeping up with the times, you're bringing in new clients. I think that's probably the biggest challenge, but also the most exciting thing for me.
Very cool. Well, and you brought up parenting, so I would be remiss if I did not congratulate you on just having your third child last week,
Yeah.
baby boy Finnegan.
Yep.
So congratulations to you and your wife and your family.
Thank you. Yes, we're a full house now. We have five of us. We're loving it, and baby's doing well, mom's doing well, and yeah, back at work because the auctions they always need to be built.
That they do. Well, fantastic. So again, I love the entrepreneurial streak that you have, and it's funny talking about your childhood reminds me a lot of myself. I mean, again, I, uh, I built up my collection really from mowing lawns and washing cars and literally going door to door, asking people what I could do to try to earn money. And, so I've always had that same work ethic, but with the entrepreneurialism that you have, one of the things that took place recently was you purchased Huggins and Scott. So you purchased another auction house, and I'd love to know, what was the thought process behind that? Was it a strategic move? Is it something that you would contemplate doing in the future with other smaller auction houses to continue to build out your footprint, or kind of how did all that take place?
Yeah, I mean, Huggins and Scott was unfortunately an acquisition of opportunity because Bill Huggins passed away. So Bill Huggins was the founder, owner, and operator of Huggins and Scott, well respected in the hobby for decades, and he passed away unexpectedly. And so that company, which had a great little niche in the business, great employees, great customer base, was kind of left without a leader. And so we were able to step in. We had thought about actually doing something with Huggins and Scott in the past. We thought they were extremely complementary to our business, but the turn of events was such that REA was able to step in, continue the brand, continue the business, maintain all the employees, and really keep that business running uninterrupted. So was it strategic? Sure. I mean, in a certain degree, everything that we do has some strategy behind it. But it was really just my belief that it was a good company in a hobby that doesn't always have good, hardworking companies for collectors and customers. And it was important to me to make sure that they kept on doing what they were very good at. And it's worked out great. I mean, it's a year and a half in now, and we've maintained them, we've built them out, we've added some of the technologies that REA's had and enjoys, and it's been a good thing for everybody, I think.
And being in the line of business I'm in, I almost can't not ask this question. But you're a young guy, but did it bring about some? Hey, is my succession plan, is REA succession planning in line where it needs to be if God forbid something were to happen to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think anytime it happens or somebody close to you or somebody that you know or somebody that's young, I mean, unfortunately, I've had friends pass away. I'm in my 30s. It does bring it to the forefront of your mind. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, making sure that, I wake up every day and I realize that I'm working for people that are outside of me and my family. I mean, I have dozens of employees here. They have family members. So yes, I've laid out some planning. I've given thought to how in the event that I'm not available, does REA continue? Because it's important to the people that work here and rely on it, but it's also, in my opinion, very important to the hobby.
Yeah. Yeah. A question that I had that was of interest to me. We've actually, you and I have done a couple of panels together with members from other auction houses, and y'all know each other. There's like, a very friendly vibe, but, to some extent, there's also, I would have to assume, some sort of a competitive situation. And how is the relationship, from a friend standpoint and a business standpoint, with others in the hobby that would potentially be considered your competitors?
Yeah, I mean, I think you summed it up nicely in that it is friendly competition. I mean, I think the hobby is small enough that we all run in the same circle. We all, especially, a couple of us come up on the same deals from time to time. Um, I've worked in the past at SGC with other people that are senior executives at competing auction houses. So, I do have a good relationship with all these people. We all want to win, obviously, but we're cognizant of the fact that we're doing baseball cards and sports memorabilia on a daily basis, and it's not, you don't need to be cutthroat. You don't need to tune out people that you enjoy spending time with or you find entertaining. And I've been fortunate that I've run into a lot of good people in the industry.
Yeah, there are. You said it exactly. There's so many good people in the industry, and we all have, so much in common. It's difficult not to resonate with each other, even if there is that competitive environment.
For sure.
Yeah. So, last kind of specific business question is are you able to share any of your, short or long term goals that you have with REA?
Well, I mean, my goal is always to keep delivering top quality products. I'm always on the hunt for great material. I'm always on the hunt to build these wonderful auctions. As far as what I'm looking forward to in the future, I mean, we're always keeping our ear to the ground about where we might be able to innovate. I think there's a lot of opportunity for us with the Huggins acquisition to do things in other collectible areas. Huggins has exposure in comics and coins in a way that REA does not. And I'm excited, even in the year and a half that we've owned Huggins and Scott, about how we've been able to build out that sector for them. REA, I think, has a lot of opportunity to offer services that we haven't done in the past or we haven't put a lot of effort behind in the past. Maybe fixed price selling, private sales, stuff like that. So at the end of the day, the core business is always, to me, the most important business, and building great auctions. But I think there's a lot of green pasture, which is exciting, because I've been at this for 12, 13 years. I've owned it for going on 9, and I still feel like there's a lot of runway.
So let's transition to some hobby questions, and I'm going to start with you in particular. I know that you have a baseball card collection. That's how you kind of got started in the business, and uh, what I really want to know is number one, is there a couple pieces that you're constantly on the lookout for your own personal collection? And then
Hmm.
number two is there anything that's in your own personal collection that you just absolutely positively wouldn't get rid of? Or maybe it's if the house is on fire, the one piece you'd make sure to go get, sort of a deal.
Yeah, I mean, so working backwards, my 52 mantle. I have owned at one point in my life a 52 tops mantle in every grade from authentic to 7. And I've sold them all except for the PSA 1, which was the first one that I bought. And I went to the National for the first time in 2003, was 17 years old. And I remember seeing a 52 mantle in that room for the first time in person. And I just remember being awestruck by it. And I love the card. I bought it 10 years or so ago from a good friend of mine in the business. And I've always just kept that first one. So I love that card. I can't see myself selling it. As far as what am I on the lookout for, I'm a big Cal Ripken fan. And I don't at this juncture have any game used memorabilia in my collection, but I've got a whole bunch of Ripken cards, rookie cards, autograph cards. I've always been in the back of my mind keeping an eye out for a game used bat or jersey that I really like.
Mm.
There's been a bunch, but none that have resonated with me, if you will. So as
But
far as
what would
sports,
resonate? Would it be like from a specific time frame, specific game sort of thing, or?
yeah, so like I think it would be very cool to find a 1986 Ripken, which is
Mhm.
my birth year.
Okay.
There have been a couple that have been out there. Maybe they were cracked, or I don't remember the specific examples, but if I saw a nice 1986 era jersey or bat that was, good condition that I liked, I'd probably pick it up.
Yeah.
And maybe I've missed some, but I can't be everywhere. My priorities are REA first rather than my
Right.
collection. But That's what I'm always keeping an eye out for to some degree.
Okay. Yeah, I'm a big Cal Ripken fan also, and back in my kind of autograph chasing days, he was just such a nice guy, first of all, and the consummate player, work ethic, etc. I
Yeah.
did buy it's a pretty cool jersey. It's from the 9/11 year. So I've got a game used jersey with the flag on the side patch and signed and all that good stuff. So it's pretty cool. Love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. He's a good guy. I've had the pleasure of meeting him a couple times. He's a good guy.
So you guys get some really cool stuff into your auction. And like, I feel like if I owned an auction house or even worked for an auction company, I'd just be sitting there drooling half the day. So love to know how that is, just to see some really cool stuff come in. And there has to be a time you're like, hey, I don't think I can let this go to auction. I think I need to. This is something I need to own on my own. Is does anything like that ever happen?
No, because I mean, at the end of the day, like I know our duties, like I know that we've told these consigners that we're going to get them the most money, and they've relied on us for that. And I've never, I've certainly seen things come through here that I'd say, oh, that'd be cool to own. But I really buy into the concept of auctions. I really buy into the process of letting the market decide. So yeah, we get some phenomenal stuff that comes through, but um, I never pulled the trigger.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, cool. Um, so I had the fortune of doing a podcast with Barry Mizell, leading up to the national. Of course, the focus on that podcast was the Babe Ruth jersey that sold for, uh, you know, almost doubling the record for any sports piece of $24.1 million. So that, first of all, that has to be a huge boom for the auction business. I mean, that just highlight. I mean, I spoke at a family office conference this week, and that topic got brought up, and these are ultra high net worth individuals that are not necessarily sports collectors. Everybody knew about it. Everybody in that
Yeah.
room, and so it really, don't you feel, number one, that it takes the hobby just to another level, and would love some expanded thoughts on that. And then secondly, and I have some thoughts on this as well, and we probably would answer the same thing, but what's potentially the next holy grail that may come up that we're aware of, or may come up something that we're not aware of even exists at this point?
Yeah, I mean that sale, that Ruth jersey sale, great for the hobby. And to the topic that we talked about earlier with friendly competition. I mean that raised the profile of the hobby so much that made international news, and we love to see that, right? I firmly believe that a rising tide lifts all boats. And I think Heritage is happy when I'm in the news. Maybe they wish that they had the item, but they're happy that I'm bringing a profile to the hobby. I'm happy when they're in the news, bringing the hobby into the mainstream. So stuff like that is good, and it helps everybody. Um, what do I think is next? I think the next big sale, that record-breaking sale, will probably be a card. I think that the number of memorabilia pieces that could crack into that stratosphere, I think, are few and far between. If there were a 1947 Jackie Robinson jersey that could be matched to his debut, that would be in the conversation.
Mhm.
If there were, I don't even know. I mean, Jackie
Mhm.
Robinson and Babe Ruth, those are the only ones that are really coming to my mind. But if a 52 Mantle PSA 10 showed up, if a Honus Wagner PSA 8 hit the market ever, those would challenge for sure. Um, so we'll see. That's fun. I mean, that's what keeps us all answering the phone.
Absolutely. Yeah, and of course, my thought, which is exactly what you answered, that I feel like a high grade Honus Wagner card is probably going to be the next big thing that at
Yeah.
some point hits the market and sets it on fire again.
Yeah, I agree. Fun to watch.
Absolutely. So, significant changes have taken place really since COVID, but certainly even over the last 10 years. A little bit of thoughts from you on directionally where you feel the hobby's going, and there's obviously so many areas you can take this, because you've got, the holy grail items, some of these, what I call blue chip memorabilia investments that are selling for record high prices. But then you also have had kind of the roller coaster ride with some of the new things that have brought some, jaw dropping prices, and then some things that haven't resold at same prices that they brought just a year or two earlier. So, kind of directionally, where do you think we're going with this hobby at this point?
So, I mean, the short answer is I think that the hobby's on an upward trajectory. And then the longer answer is that I think that the hobby is broken down into a number. I don't even know what that number is, of smaller hobbies and subsections of the larger hobby. So you've got, vintage, which is what REA has always specialized in, has been steadily increasing through COVID, post COVID. Vintage has been very, very strong. Those blue chip vintage, Cobbs, Wagners, Mantles, Ruths, Garrigs, Robinsons, those have done extremely well. The modern market has been more of a roller coaster, like you described. Then you've got memorabilia that's been steadily increasing. Tickets have been coming up in the world. Photographs have been coming up in the world. So there's all these little subsections of the hobby that I think overall mean the hobby's heading upwards, but there's certainly been bumps in the road. There's certainly been downward movements on some of these things. But it's exciting. And I always kind of laugh when I hear, the COVID bubble, because from where I sit, it never fully popped. I mean, there were parts of the market that popped, but we continue to sign up huge numbers of people every auction. Every year, our registrations, our engagement numbers are up. I mean, there's a ton of people coming into the hobby for the first time still, X number of years post COVID. So it's fun to look at back at that 2020, 2021 era and see how exciting and crazy some of those numbers were. But if you step back, the hobby's growing very steadily.
Can you tell me a little bit about what you think about the new people entering the hobby? And you probably have some sense of the feel for that. Of course, again, in my line of business, a lot of what I talk about when I'm on the speaking circuit is what I believe has happened, not is happening, but has happened, which is the transition of collectibles, and not just sports cards, but I mean, it can be purses and watches, but really a transition to those assets becoming an actual asset class and a
Yeah.
piece of a portfolio, especially amongst the high net worth, which is, where our business focuses on. And I saw a statistic recently that said 77% of high net worth individuals, which they defined as a $25 million net worth or more, 77% collected something of significance. And so again, I'd love to hear, is it new people coming in? Is it young people coming in? Is it investors that are looking for different asset classes, or what some people love, tangible assets, where you can if you're wealthy enough to buy the $24 million Babe Ruth jersey, you can put it on your wall. What's your thoughts on that?
I think it's a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there are some people that are coming in. Again, I said earlier, I'm in my 30s. I resonate with a lot of people who are just now making partner at their law firm. They're just now making partner at their accounting firm. They're starting to make real money. They're out of residency if they're a doctor. I mean, I have friends that are just now getting through schooling, basically, and they're starting to make some money, and they're rekindling their youth. I mean, Pokemon is a perfect example of an area of the hobby that just has taken off recently, because I think people are trying to recapture their youth. Then you do have a very serious investor class. You do have a number of people that are coming in, either allocating part of their portfolio to the collectibles, speculating on collectibles. But it's a real thing. They have no emotional attachment to the material. Oftentimes they may not even understand the material, but they're looking at the dollars and cents. They're looking at the data, and they're going from there. And our job is to cater to everybody. I personally collect what I like, but it of course represents a part of my portfolio, and I have the benefit of being well versed in the material and being able to make what I think are good decisions. I think the one thing I caution people is make sure you really understand what you're doing. And if you don't, know who you can talk to, know who you can ask, know who you can trust, because putting a bunch of money into the collectibles market is no different than putting a bunch of money into the stock market. If you do it wrong, or you do it with somebody that can't be trusted, you might as well just light the money on fire.
So true story. This is going back years ago, but and when I didn't have the same discretionary income that I am fortunate to have now. But my wife walked into the office at one point and she's like, it seems like you're continuing to add things onto the wall. What's going on here? And so I kind of pulled this out of the air, and I made the comment that, well, I take about 20% of the money that I would allocate towards investments, and I allocate it towards sports memorabilia because I consider it an investment. And there was some truth to that. There was some lie to that. The truth to that was I I did always have an eye for, hey, if I'm going to spend money, I want to spend money on something that I like, because I do have a passion for the collecting. But there was, and even this even goes back to being a kid, not just me being in the wealth management world. There was always the eye of, hey, but if I'm going to spend money, I want to buy something that I think is going to appreciate in value. And where the BS of that was really, I was just trying to get her off my case for spending money on stuff that she didn't think I should be spending money on. But and it worked, by the way. And I think from a balance sheet perspective at this point, that if she understands what all there is, that she would be happy with the outcome. But all that leads to a question for you, which is, do you have you actually mentioned allocation of your portfolio. Do you have an allocation strategy that you use to purchase collectibles that are enjoyable to you?
I don't know if it's a strategy so much as it's a mindset, if you will. When I buy something, I buy, and again, I'm probably a little jaded because of my position in the hobby and the fact that I do see everything, and I know what's rare and I know what's not rare. But if I buy something, first and foremost, I have to like it. And if I like it, is it at a price that I think is not going to go down? Like I don't need, there's nothing for me as a collector, because of the exposure that I have on a daily basis, that I need to go and just spend recklessly on. So my mindset, my strategy, if you will, is always buying with that investment in mind and trying to tick both boxes. Is it something that I like, that appeals to me? And is it at a price that I think I can either maintain or appreciate long term? Is it a specific percentage? No, not per se. And I think it's probably just a function of time. Like I don't have the time to focus on my own collection, but it's certainly more fun than owning stocks for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, from a standpoint of like building a collection, my background and my story, and I got into having these discussions around the collectibles really because of the overlay of passion that I have for what I do for business on the wealth management side, along with my passion for collecting. And um, I think we've had this discussion before, but I came to a point where I realized I had a really big problem. I've got a fantastic collection. I have a family that cares nothing about it, knows nothing about it, knows nothing of the value, knows nothing of the inventory, would have no idea where to go if I didn't make it home tonight. And so it put me on a path of, hey, knowing what I know, what are the things I should really be looking at? And I ultimately developed a scorecard for this of 10 areas that we address, or that I address personally with my personal collection. But what if any tools do you use or do you recommend for collectors to help stay on top of their collection? How are they tracking their values? How are they properly insuring? And by the way, I was significantly underinsured. And then, estate planning for higher net worth individuals. And then, my personal situation, the succession planning. What happens to your collection? How do you make sure your family properly monetizes that collection and understands what they're doing if you die prematurely? Do you get into
Yeah.
those conversations at all with your clients, or?
Yeah, from time to time. I mean, I cannot tell you how many consignments we've gotten from family members that have no idea what they're dealing with, or they have no idea the monetary value that their significant others invested. And I think, you raised the issue of insurance, which is a great topic, because people have said to me like, oh, I only spend $5,000 a year, right? I'm a modest collector. It's like, well, you've been spending $5,000 a year for 20 years, 25 years, 30 years. This is now a six-figure collection. And so they think on a very small level when they need to kind of step back and say, well, what is this in the aggregate? And I think that people, if I had one piece of advice, it's step back and look at your collection over the lifespan of yourself as a collector, because it gets out of control for a lot of people. And, it sounds like maybe even at one point it was out of control for you, as far as, realizing what was there, what its value was, how it had come up in the world, how it had appreciated monetarily. So I think taking a step back and inventory, for me, it's Excel. I'm a very simple person. Excel has been a godsend. I track what I have. I track where I bought it, the date I bought it, and what I paid for it. And that's a great tool. And that's something that I can refresh every time I buy something. It's something I can revisit on a yearly basis, something that I can furnish to my insurance company, something that I can print out and give to my wife or tuck away with my estate documents. Like, it's a very basic but functional tool. And I think inventory, like, people are sometimes afraid to inventory their collections because they, don't want their wife to find out. But think about when your wife needs to find out, or your significant other needs to find out. How would you feel? Would you feel worse about your significant other knowing what you spent on the collectibles, or selling it at a garage sale for $20?
Exactly.
And that's really what you have to think about. It's unbelievable. I tell a story. One of the first consignments I ever went on at REA was out in Long Island, and we pulled up to the house, and there was a dumpster in the driveway, and the woman was sitting in the reclining chair in the living room, and she said, "Whatever you don't take is going in that dumpster tomorrow." And we took $700,000 out of the house.
And she had no idea.
She had no idea.
Yeah.
As far as she knew, her husband went down into the basement where his workbench was, where his tools were, where his sports memorabilia was, and she wanted no part of that world. And so I think about, like, if we said, "Oh, we can't come this weekend, we can't come tomorrow," what would have happened to that stuff? That was life-changing money for that family.
Absolutely. Yeah, I don't mind telling you, being in Florida and having two hurricanes pass through in a 3-week period, it was comforting to know that I had my collection properly insured. And I certainly have items I would never want to lose. I certainly have one of a kind items. And frankly, even if I had it overinsured, I'd rather have what I have than a big check.
Right.
But again, it was extremely comforting to know that, God forbid, things just got mowed down, and I did get a big check that, to some extent you could start over and not have what, my situation based on where I was previously insured, just have a huge loss because of not properly planning. And I'm in the world of planning. So that's what
a lot of lawyers don't have wills, a lot,
that's very true.
You focus on helping others and you forget about yourself.
So, Brian, is there a particular legacy or mission that you hope to establish with your auction house? And again, you're such a young guy, and there's just so much potential room for growth. But have you thought about that at all?
For me, it's just about doing things the right way, treating people honest, with integrity, being honest, transparent. That's what I want the legacy of REA to be. That's what I want the legacy of myself to be. Again, I want to innovate. I want to be a leader in the industry. I want REA to be in the conversation for everything that's good and right and significant in the hobby. But we have a lot of fun doing what we're doing, and I think that's just as important. We make great relationships with clients. We have a great team of people that work here that put on these auctions. So we're having a lot of fun. But we realize, like that example I just said, we're doing important work for people, and we're helping people through some dark times. We're helping people through some great times, and I just have a lot of fun doing what I'm doing.
That's fantastic. Well, you have your premier auction starting on November 22nd, which will be a couple days after this podcast should be released. Tell us a little bit about that. Is there any important items in there? Anything you're super excited about? I mean, your auctions are always fantastic auctions, but is there a piece or two that you'd love to talk about?
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be a big one, over 3,700 items. I am very excited, and this has just made the news and the hobby in the last week or so. This Morehouse Baking Babe Ruth rookie. So this is a newly discovered, previously unknown example of Babe Ruth's 1916 rookie card. Hugely significant, graded PSA 3.5, part of a collection of more than 100 cards from the set that we discovered up in Massachusetts, and I'm really excited by that. That's going to go for $500,000 plus,
The one card,
and we
correct?
the one
Yeah.
card, correct. And we actually, there were two Ruth cards in that collection, so we'll get to do this all over again in the spring, which will be great. Um, and then we just have, so many. It's like picking your favorite kid. So many great items, but we have several fresh to the hobby, newly discovered pieces of memorabilia, card collections. I think this one to me stands out for just being fresh. I think when you look through it, you'll say, I haven't seen that before. That's a new one. And I think that's exciting.
Is there any background that you're able to share on this collection being found? I mean, was it somebody passed away and it was in an attic or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean it's a great story. The cards were produced by a company in Lawrence, Massachusetts, and this is 100 and almost 110 years ago, and they stayed within a very small radius of that factory for more than a century, and they were in the same family. The family did antiquing and house clean outs back in the day, and they kind of knew it was there, but they never really paid much attention to it until recently. And so recently they started doing their research. They realized what they had was significant. They attended the national convention this past summer in Cleveland, did some research there, met with some people there. We met with them there, had the opportunity to go out and view the collection, and lucky enough to get it on consignment. So, kind of a hiding in plain sight example here, where they knew they had a box of baseball cards, but they did not realize the significance, and they did not realize the fact that Babe Ruth was in there not once but twice.
Yeah. That's got to be just one of the funnest and most gratifying parts about what you do. I mean, that's just super exciting to be able to be involved in stories like that. And there's probably a similar story with almost every major auction that you do.
Yeah, and then that's, the reputation that we have is such that people come to us because we're honest with them, we're transparent with them, and we help them through this, and we tell them what you have is very significant. And I'm not trying to buy it from them. I'm saying, look, I want to work with you to get the most money. And so we've carved out a really nice place in this hobby, and we get a lot of great stories, and we have a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, again, you guys do a fantastic job. So I'm gonna close out. Number one is there anything that we didn't talk about that you would like to bring up, or anything else that you'd like to say? And then secondly, for our listeners and viewers, because we do both a podcast and a video on this, but how do they find your auction house if they're not already aware of it?
Yeah, I mean, look, we covered a lot of ground, and we were saying right before we went live here that you and I could talk for hours about a lot of different things. I mean, I think if I had to settle in on anything, I think it's just taking stock of what you have. You and I both deal with people in all stages of life, all income brackets, and whether you have a $5,000 collection or a $50 million collection, ensuring it, understanding what you have, coming up with a plan, have conversations with auction houses while you're alive, document them, write them down. We're in a number of estate planning documents with already pre-negotiated terms so that it's just plug and play for your heirs. So that's, I think, something that people don't realize they can do. You can make arrangements while you're alive, and make it extra easy for your heirs when the time comes.
Well said.
As far as how you find out about us, you go to robertedwardauctions.com. We've got an auction starting on the 22nd of November. It ends on December 8th. We're already working on a full slate of auctions for the new year. And, you can drop us an email at info@robertedwardauctions.com. Call us. We're on all social media channels. Pretty easy to find.
Yeah.
But welcome everybody. And not everything's $500,000 in our auction. We have a whole group of auctions that start at $10. So
Absolutely. Well, cool. Well, thanks again for being here with us. Always a pleasure talking to you. Again, you're just one of the people that I literally love talking to every opportunity I get. So really appreciate you taking your time.
Absolutely. Thanks, Tom.
On behalf of Tom Ruggie and Destiny Family Office, we hope you enjoyed today's episode of The Significance of Wealth and will continue to tune into future episodes. Connect with us at destinyfamilyoffice.com, on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, and Reddit, and recommend our podcast on iTunes and Spotify. Until next time. The expressed views, thoughts, and opinions in this episode of The Significance of Wealth belong solely to the host and/or guests and are not investment recommendations or offers to buy or sell securities or private investments by Destiny Wealth Partners or its affiliates. This podcast is for informational and educational purposes only. The funds discussed are typically for qualified purchasers, defined as $5 million of investment net worth, exclusive of primary residence.